I heard a great quote by Nick Saban. He said, people want to focus on outcomes, and I think outcomes are a bit of a distraction. And here's why that matters in business. When you fixate on results, you lose sight of the only thing you can actually control, the process. And in your business, if you're a business owner, your process always starts with you, the business owner. Hey everyone, Marcus here with the Pursuit of Value podcast. Today we're talking about one of the biggest growth barriers in business, when the owner becomes the bottleneck. Why it happens, how it shows up inside your company, and more importantly, the mindset shift you need to break out of it. Let's get into it. Beginning with the end in mind is a great way to set goals and cast vision. However, here's an important insight. We as humans tend to fixate on the end goal rather than to give the correct attention to the process, which will get us to the end goal. And when we're locked on the outcome, we unintentionally lose sight of the work that actually gets us there. We're distracted. And when it's the owner of the business who's distracted, the whole business is distracted. Because organizations follow the focus of the owner. They follow the leadership, and the owner becomes the bottleneck. All right, first, let's look at why this happens. You can implement great tools, hire talented people, and build detailed SOPs and still struggle to scale. And I've seen this all the time. Why? Because the way you operate as the owner, the way you think, sets the tone for how the entire organization operates. If your approach is reactive or unstructured, the business naturally is going to reflect that. Scaling always begins with the owner. This is hard because there has to be some trust and letting go on the ownership, by the ownership, but it has to happen. If everything flows through you, your memory, your urgency, your speed, your way of doing things, the business can only grow to the level of your personal capacity. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. The business can only grow to the level of your personal capacity. That's why duplicating yourself isn't optional. It's the starting point. Most owners don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because of the patterns they unconsciously work in. They rely on memory. They operate constantly in urgency. They hold on tight instead of delegating. They avoid process because it feels slow. They believe they work better in chaos. They don't embrace technology that would simplify and strengthen their systems. They don't have time for it. They don't want to learn something new. And these habits feel comfortable. They feel efficient in the moment, but they create a ceiling, and that ceiling is the owner. Systems don't begin with documentation or software. Systems begin with how the owner thinks. If your decision making is reactive, your team will work in reaction. If your workflow depends on your memory, the business becomes fragile. If you hold all the knowledge, your organization becomes dependent on you for everything. Scaling requires a shift from doing the work to designing how the work gets done. All right, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsor before we move on. This episode is brought to you by Interactive Workers Virtual Assistants, helping business owners and leaders turn strategy into action. With professional remote staff, Interactive Workers takes care of your daily tasks so you can focus on what matters: execution, leadership, and growth. And here's what makes them different. Every Interactive Worker virtual assistant operates on site at the company's HQ with full supervision and IT support. This ensures security, accountability, and uninterrupted 24/7 performance. Visit interactiveworkers.com to start building your remote team today. Here's where the mindset shift happens. When you begin duplicating yourself through process, building systems, clarity, delegation, and technology, something changes. Your business stops running on your effort and it starts running on its own structure. And that is so key, its own structure. Now that you have structure, you can build upon it. Now you can scale something. You're no longer the bottleneck. You learn to create systems that you can build upon and that operate independently of people. People come and go, systems will stay. You begin to learn to manage systems rather than a task list. And now you become the leader who builds leaders. And this is one of the most valuable things you can do for your company, because building leaders is true value creation. This is the moment your business becomes scalable. Here's your homework. Here's your call to action. It's simple, targeted, and highly effective. Pick one recurring issue in your business. One. Create one simple system or process that eases that. It doesn't have to be long. It could be a 3 to 5 step process, but create it. Pick one task you can delegate today, not someday, but today, and just do it. Don't overthink it. Number 3, identify one meeting you don't need to be in, step out, and let someone else run it. All right. I hope this was valuable. Remember, you can't scale chaos, but you can scale clarity, systems, and people. Remember, your mindset is everything in business. Have a great day.